It's hard to keep up week to week with all the things that are happening in AI, but that's why this exists. You've found the AI Big Five. This week, we meet 3 new llamas. Some of the big companies are moving into education, a Doomsday Article released, and for our biggest story, have we given voices back to those who don't have them any longer? Let's dive in. I thought it might be fun for you to see how I put the Big Five together. This is just a Miro board that I use. I go in and I collect all the different news stories together on one board, then move them through kind of a value interest graph here, place them in that value interest graph, and then pick the ones that I feel like have the biggest impact or might have the broadest reach, or frankly, are the ones that I find most interesting sometimes. I thought it might be fun to see behind the scenes just a touch. Let's move on. All right, our first quick is a super quick. This one's going to be very fast. This is Google 2.5, which is the thinking model that many of the pro users have been using or subscribers have been using for a couple weeks now. Fantastic model. Gemini 2.5 Pro experimental is what you're going to see. It's going to be available to everyone. Free users, everyone else. It's also a fantastic coding model. So if you've been doing any kind of agentic coding or just coding utilities that you've been using for autocomplete, even those kinds of things, this is a really brilliant model for a lot of those things. Give it a shot. Gotta move on. All right, the second quick, super quick, once again, 11 Labs. Actually, I'm going to play a little bit of this audio here, this video that you can see. 11 Labs has released something they're calling Actor Mode, which is a way for you to change the text-to-speech that you are creating with 11 Labs using your own acting. This allows you to record your own audio to kind of guide the output that you're getting from your text-to-speech. Let's just take a listen.
So let me show you what this sounds like just by default.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing end them.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. Now, I am no actor.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them.
Okay, so I find that great. I think that really creates a surface area for people to go in and craft the speech that they're getting out of this text-to-speech modeling. Really awesome news. Moving on. Okay, another super quick one. This is Johnny Ives. Johnny Ives and Sam Altman apparently have been working on hardware together for a little while now. And there is some news that OpenAI is looking to potentially purchase that cooperative that they've been doing called IO Products. And they're looking at maybe paying around $500 million, which is kind of amazing. I've confirmed that he was working with Altman on the AI startup last year with a New York Times interview. OpenAI may end up partnering with instead of acquiring IO Product. And last year in that article, I've said that the startup's goal was to build products that are less socially disruptive than the iPhone. And to me, that's where this gets really interesting. The idea of, okay, I'm interested in an AI phone, please. Okay, another quick. It was April Fool's within this period. It was a while ago now, but I'm a little late on this one. What OpenAI released was a new voice model, just for fun or kind of for fun. It really, a lot of people enjoyed it. I think it was really fun, a really simple and enjoyable kind of April Fool's thing. Let's give it a listen.
Oh, good. You found me. Yay.
So a little bit of an attitude, a little bit of a Monday vibe there. So it's perfect. The model's name, of course, is Monday. Okay, only a week or so ago, Sam Altman was kind of hinting at the fact, or in fact stating outright, that they would be releasing the O3 model full very soon, and in the weeks to follow, they would release GPT-5. But since then, we get this tweet from him saying, change of plans, we're going to release O3 and O4 Mini after all, probably in a couple of weeks, and then do GPT-5 in a few months. So that gets pushed back just a bit. There are a bunch of reasons for this, but the most exciting one is that we're going to be able to make GPT-5 much better than we originally thought. We also found it harder than we thought to smoothly integrate everything. If you remember, GPT-5 is a combination of a lot of their different services, and we want to make sure we have enough capacity to support what we expect to be unprecedented demand. Now, that's where this really turns. I think this has a lot to do, and a lot of people believe this has a lot to do with the vision model or the image model that they just released with GPT-4o that essentially melted the servers, as Sam joked. They really had a lot of problems keeping up with the volume that they got off of that. In fact, they got 1 million subscribers in a day, which in fact, they got 1 million subscribers in an hour, which is ridiculous, frankly. So really awesome that they're actually looking at putting everything together in an official way that it won't collapse once they release it, just to try to release as quick as possible. I applaud them for this move. It's not an easy one to push things back. You take a little hit doing that, but I think it saves everybody the frustration later of things just falling apart. Okay, number 1, Microsoft Copilot. They've announced a bunch of upcoming features for Copilot. Let's take a look at what they're thinking about doing. One of the things that they're very interested in is making Copilot much more of a lifestyle feature, something that understands you, your daily life. It keeps memory on you. They even go so far as to say Copilot's more than an AI, it's yours. It will have memory and personalization. It'll be a true AI companion. That's kind of an important distinction here that they're describing. It'll remember your favorite food, types of films you enjoy, nephew's birthday and his interests. Neat idea. This is all still kind of vaporous. It's something that Apple also talked about, but we'll see. I think that's in this video, they talk about some of the appearances that they might give the AI, and that would presume that they're going to start having an avatar that is on the screen or in different environments for you so that you gain a relationship with it. Frankly, I kind of like this idea. I think this will be something that we'll need going forward so that we have different personas that we interact with. That's just a guess. Insert Clippy joke here, of course. Another one is actions. So this is kind of their ability to control a web browser, ostensibly your web browser on your machine or something like that. They're going to give Copilot more vision, the ability to have real-time streaming capacity with what's on your camera. It can look through your camera roll as well. It'll be able to access multiple browser tabs and files and read the screen that you're working with, which is very cool. But this is now getting into that operator experience. It has pages, the idea that you'll be able to work in a canvas and edit a document on the fly with this thing. I think that's a very neat thing, and I think Microsoft has an extra play here to be able to broaden it beyond just a markdown system and expand into some of their Office tools. Podcasts, they'll have AI-powered podcasts to be able to vocalize the information that it has, whether it's your personal information or information it finds on the web. Shopping, deep research, we've seen from other systems as well. These are very useful. Copilot search. So this is just kind of their foray into all of the spaces as Copilot rather than a partner of OpenAI. As you noticed, no mention of OpenAI here. I find that kind of interesting, but I think this is very, very cool. And I leave this as a big story because I think a lot of people will be touched by Microsoft Copilot before they are many other products. Let's move on. All right, story number 2. Llama 4 released. It's about a year in the making. They've been working on it for a while. It is an open weights model like they have done in the past, so that's exciting. It is also state-of-the-art, and it competes and compares to many other kind of frontier models that are out there. There are questions of whether or not the model that they released to LM Arena is something that was not the model they released. Did they tune it? Did they Volkswagen it basically to get a version that would perform better against those benchmarks? So some benchmark kind of tuning is in question right now. I'll leave that out. Let other people figure that out. What's worth mentioning is they have 3 different model sizes, Scout Maverick and Behemoth, small, medium, and large model. They've released Scout and Maverick. There's 2 things that are really, I think, meaningful here. Number 1, the Scout model down here is a 10 million context window. So 10 million tokens is kind of nuts. It's amazing the amount of context. They're very good at finding needles in a haystack. Whether or not that's what's needed for a large context window is still being determined. And the Maverick has the 1 million context window, window, which is kind of the length that Gemini models have had up to this point. There's some real value. First, this large context window certainly opens up new opportunities. The second thing that's actually very interesting about these Llama models is they are mixture of experts. Mixture of experts, you might imagine your brain has different regions, one for vision, one for sound, one for smells, whatever it might be. If you're smelling something, it may not need a lot of the visual cortex. If you take a large language model and start separating what's useful about it into different experts, if you will, that's what's going on here. And you can see the Maverick has 128 discrete experts, and the Scout has 16 discrete experts. And under these, you'll see the Maverick is a 400 billion parameter model. The Scout is a 109 billion parameter model, but the active parameters are only 17 billion. The active parameters are how many parts, how many nodes are activated or lit up during one processing. As a word comes through or a phrase or a concept comes through, how many different nodes need to be activated and run against or mathed against, if you will. That's really where our GPU, that's the performance. So if a 400 billion parameter model can act like a 17 billion parameter model during inference, it's going to be much cheaper to run. We've seen that with the DeepSeek models. We also see that here. We'll see a chart below with some pricing. That's actually kind of interesting that they're going mixture of experts. I think mixture of experts has a real possibility to be a game changer for us, but we'll see. That's kind of one of these, that's where it is right now. We'll see where it goes. It's also really worth saying this behemoth, which really hasn't released yet, we haven't really seen it, is a 2 trillion parameter model, which is just staggering. What it's useful for, it says it's an intelligent teacher for distillation that you might be able to train other models or distill other models with. So kind of staggering. I will scroll down very quickly to one of the parts that's quite interesting, which is the cost. And this really goes directly to that performance we were talking about. And looking at for 1 million tokens, the price of inference is 19 to 49 cents, whereas with GPT-4o, it's something like $4.50, 17 cents for Flash. So it is a very performant model, an efficient model from inference standpoint. Jury's still out to figure out how well it actually performs against other models, but you can see their numbers here, of course, as they always do, stack up favorably, if not always victorious to all other models. That's just the way that these model makers do. I'll let other people tell that story. That's enough about this model stuff, right? Let's move on. Number 3 is education. Both OpenAI and Anthropic have taken a step in the education direction specifically, but in very different ways. That's just this week. OpenAI did it with education for the consumer, for the end user. You'll see a bunch of different live streams that you can take part in, and you can subscribe to them and register for them. There's one in 5 days, for example. But they also have tons and tons of content that you can come through that's very specific and very useful, I think, to some people. AI for nonprofit. What do I need to know about RAG? How do I get started with Sora? Career prep, creating resumes and interviews, collaborating with AI in group work and project, writing and coding. So there's a lot of different content in here along different tracks that can be quite useful if you're trying to understand how these LLMs that now have a lot of moving parts in them might be helpful in your daily life. This is a great place to browse. So Anthropic went a different direction. Anthropic is doing this for higher education. They've partnered with, I think, 4 universities where they're giving campus-wide access to Claude to everyone, to employees as well as students. They also have a new mode of interaction for students, a way that it can not necessarily just give you the answer. And I don't mean that it holds off the answer, but it actually engages a person who is actually trying to learn something in a meaningful way. Specialized version of Claude tailored for higher education. There's a learning mode, university-wide Claude availability for some universities, and some student programs that I'll show in just a second. So this learning mode for students, it has a guide mechanism rather than answering. It's kind of asking you, how would you approach this problem instead of providing an immediate solution, they say. It uses Socratic questioning, prompting with things like, what evidence supports your conclusion, emphasizing core concepts, highlighting fundamental principles behind specific problems. So it's really, its intention isn't necessarily to derive the answer and give you a conclusion. It's trying to help you learn pathways to understand the material better, which I think is great. I think that's a very interesting idea, but also opportunities for students. So if you're a student, you're interested in getting involved with Anthropic or Claude, there's two ways. So they have this Claude Campus Ambassador. That's worth looking into. You have opportunities to work directly with the Anthropic team to launch educational initiatives. I would imagine little courses and being able to bring people together and teach them Claude and introduce them, those kinds of things. But also for student builders, if you're interested in building things, if you're an engineer student or just interested in coding or want to vibe code, those kinds of things, there's an opportunity for those students. And I would say anybody that's interested in this should reach out to this just for fun, because it would look great on a resume and just be silly on a resume that you got funded by Anthropic for some of the projects that you built. But it says an opportunity for students who are building projects with Claude to apply for funding in the form of API credits. So you might be able to get extra API credits, basically compute usage, if you're building and you just kind of send them a piece of information about what you're trying to build. I think that's really cool. All right, we got to move on. Okay, this one's a big one. It's a kind of a doomsday letter to the editor, if you will. These people kind of released a report on their projections of what they think AI will come to be in the very near future. But the reason I brought this one in was because it's in the New York Times. I have a feeling a lot of people saw it or have heard reference to it or maybe quotes from it or something like that. And I just wanted to dispel a little bit about that. These people, maybe they're completely correct. My real takeaway to get started here is maybe they're right. Their timelines seem massively overly aggressive, but it is absolutely worth recognizing the things that are in this report are not things that people are saying, nope, will not happen. No way that's going to happen. You're basically saying the sky is falling. That's not happening. So it's worth saying, okay, just stretch out like twofold, threefold the timelines that they're talking about. They're only talking about 2 years. You go threefold. You're talking about 6-7 years from now at the longest. So really, some of the things that they talked about in here are kind of surprising. The leader of this group is a former OpenAI researcher who left because he felt that OpenAI was not acting correctly. They were acting recklessly with AI. And that's kind of, as you might tell, the bias to the kind of report that they put out. They also put out a report, and so you might hear this in kind of a narrativized way. They also put out a report that was kind of heavy on the sci-fi drama. So they got a writer to come in and help really put a narrative to it, which is, I think, kind of interesting, an interesting way to tell a story that might become. Neat way to do it. At least maybe you'll get optioned. But it really also might resonate because of that with people in the wrong way, as if there's some reality to it. And maybe that's a little bit scarier than it needs to be. They predict that AIs will continue to improve to a point where they're fully autonomous agents that are better than humans at everything by the end of 2027 or so. We'll say that or so is doing a little bit of lifting there. So Ali Farad, the chief executive of the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence and AI Lab in Seattle, reviewed the paper AI 2027 and said he wasn't impressed. I'm all for projections and forecasts, he said, but this forecast doesn't seem to be grounded in scientific evidence or the reality of how things are evolving in AI. And that I definitely agree with. And it is mentioned by the author that Daniel, the writer of the paper, told him last year that he believed that there was a 70% chance of AI destroying or catastrophically harming humanity. Now, that may be his belief, that may be a projection. They're also part of the effective altruism movement or philosophical belief. If you heard about this paper and you heard, wait, everything's about to happen in a bad way and they're going to take over, it's worth understanding this is not the general belief of the field. And not a lot of people are saying in a year and a half, we're at the end of the rope. I think there's a lot of people, though, saying these steps are not necessarily incorrect, and it's worth starting the conversations and starting the movements that we need to start and protections we need to make sure that when this does start to occur, however far down the road it might be, we're ready for it, or at least we've had some conversations. I am not saying they're crazy, this is nonsense. That is not the point. I am saying their timelines are nuts, I think, personally, and I think the kind of the direction that they're going is a little too harsh, but at the same time, some of the things they're talking about almost guaranteed will occur. Let's move on to the last one. It's a little bit happier. Okay, and for the big finale, this is the big story. You know I like these. This is them doing implants, brain-to-computer interface that they implant in someone's brain and are able to give that person a voice. So synthesized voice output by them attempting to say the words. It's kind of fascinating. For the millions of people worldwide who've lost the ability to speak due to stroke or ALS or neurological injuries, the revolutionary technology is breaking down barriers to communication. Researchers have developed a potentially groundbreaking system that translates brain activity directly into speech in real time, allowing those with severe paralysis to communicate naturally once again. And it works almost simultaneous to the user's intent to speak. And so imagine being locked in and not being able to communicate. And now all of a sudden there's hope. This is still in research mode. So I'm not saying this is a product, but it is a proof that this actually works. The research focused on a 47-year-old woman named Anne. After years of communicating through transparent letterboard, eye tracking at 2.6 words per minute, the new technology gave her a chance to speak again. This technology has tremendous potential for improving quality of life for people with severe paralysis, Edward Chang said of UCSF. It's exciting that the latest AI advances are greatly accelerating BCIs for practical real-world use in the near future, BCIs being brain-computer interfaces. Technology works through a 253-channel electrode array surgically implanted on the surface of her brain, covering the brain region that controls speech muscles. As she attempts to silently mime words without making the sounds, the system captures and interprets the neural signals, converting them into both audible speech and text in real time. When there were 50 common phrases for someone that might need care, for caregiver needs kind of stuff, it was 90 words a minute. When there's a 1,000-word dictionary behind it, it's about 50 words per minute. 100 to 150 is the typical speed that people speak at. It's 88% correct when it's on the small dictionary. But they also said to ensure that the system wasn't simply memorizing familiar phrases, the researchers tested it with completely unfamiliar vocabulary words from the NATO phonetic alphabet, like Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. The system achieved a 46% accuracy on these novel words, proving it was learning fundamental aspects of speech production rather than just recognizing patterns. They said they wanted to see if we could generalize. We found that our model is indeed learning the building blocks of sound or voice. And that alone is kind of fascinating, right? This is the very beginning of it. They're in the middle of research with one patient, but they're still seeing this kind of efficacy and real promise on the other side of it. And with AI and all of the other kind of reinforcement learning patterns that we'll be able to apply to something like this, I really think that this shows a lot of hope. Let's watch just a little bit of the video to see what's happening here. We'll see Anne reading and responding to the things that are on the screen.
You love me there and so change you to it. Where did you get this? Is that they I and you?
All right, so this is a very hopeful story. I love seeing this kind of thing. For someone that hasn't been able to speak for 18 years to be able to even do that must be just magical and completely unlocking to that person and millions of other people that are in this state, no doubt. So this is very exciting news. It's fun to share these kinds of stories. I love this kind of stuff. I hope you do too. Okay, that's it for the Big Five this week. Next week already looks to be a little bit denser and a lot of recent updates from Google, things like that. So keep an eye out for that. If you subscribe, it'll just pop up in your list and it really helps out the channel. Appreciate that. Thanks for coming along for the ride on this one, and I'll see you in the next one.